Well, good afternoon. This is Neil Palache, certified women's money coach with the Wealth Creator Company for Women. It is now 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time on the west coast of the United States in Southern California. It has been a blistering 90 plus degrees, maybe even hit 100 today out here. So I hope you all are having a good day all over the country and all over the world for that matter. So listen, you may have seen that the subject for today, hi Kathy, your subject for today is buying a car, don't get screwed. Listen, I know that you have been out buying cars in the past. Maybe you're buying cars right now. I see people coming on. Elise and Francesca, Robert, hello, hello, hello. Good to see you all. Actually, good to be seen. I cannot, in fact, see you. So good to be on. Good to be on. So look, the reason that this has come up this week, quite frankly, is because I am out looking for a car or a van because my wife's van, we have an Odyssey because we have 3 teenagers and we are slapping them around all over the place, and our transmission died. And we have a couple of other things wrong with it, so there's about $5,000 worth of work to be done. And the question is, do we do it, or do we just start over? And we typically buy used cars. So that would be my first little, I don't know whether you'd call it a recommendation or at least my leaning, and that is to buy used cars. Now, look, I know that there are some incredibly good new car deals on the market, so I'm not suggesting that everybody ought to buy used cars. There is reason to buy a new car, and part of that reason is because there's good deals. It is because interest rates are very low. It is because you get warranties and you get a good peace of mind with a new car. So I'm not entirely against new cars, and I'm not one of these folks that in any situation just simply says everybody should do this because. It's not for everybody. You've got to kind of, as you've heard me say it before in many other different subjects, you have to figure out what's best for you and then do that. But cars are kind of a funny thing, aren't they? They're expensive, but it's not like buying a house. You're not spending $500,000 or more, but you could spend $10, $20, $30, $40, $50, $60, $70,000 or more on a car, and so it is a fairly big decision. And you go in and you smell the leather and you put on that, stereo. And it's got the DVD and it's got the GPS and it's got the Bluetooth, and my goodness, I'm not so sure that there is a reason to have a home or an office when you've got a car the way they make them today. I think that you could live and work out of your car and you'd be good to go. A little tight for a family of 5, but I'm kind of half serious, certainly for work. They're amazing. I mean, Wi-Fi and the whole 9 yards. So fantastic. And you can't get that on the older cars, right? So again, another reason to buy a new one. So I just want to make sure that you're getting a good deal. Now, when you're buying a car, you've got interest rates to deal with. When you're leasing a car, you've got factors to deal with. Now, leasing a car is much more complicated. It shouldn't be, but it is, and there's so many different moving parts that it's very, very easy to misunderstand what it is that you're doing and to really end up in a deal that you can't get out of. You can be stuck. That is a problem. So I want to make sure that you are in a really, really good situation when you get this car, because you might be in the car for 3 years or 5 or even 10, depending on how long you like to keep your cars. I like to keep mine a long time. So when you're out there, particularly leasing a car, you are often going to look at the payment, and that's kind of all you're going to look at. Oh, this is $299, $399, $499, and so you're going to say, all right, that's the payment. I can handle the payment, so therefore I can buy the car. You got to be real careful. I was having a good giggle the other day, I must say. I was having a very good giggle because I saw an ad on the television. And it said that you can have this car, and I can't remember what car it was, quite frankly, but that you can have this car for $88 a month. And you look at that and you think, $88 a month? I can have a new car for $88 a month. And you think, wow, that's pretty amazing. Except when you look at the fine print, it said that you have to put down $5,900. Okay, so let's just think this through for a second. You got a 3-year lease. It's $88 a month, which is about $1,000 a year. That's $3,000 plus the $5,900, which round off to $6,000. So you got $9,000. $9,000 divided by 3 years is $3,000 a year, which is $250 a month. So in fact, the lease payment is really $250 a month, but you're going to give them $6,000 up front, and what they're hoping for is that you've got a car that you can trade in. Maybe it's worth $8,000 or $9,000. They'll give you $6,000 for it. There's your $6,000. Now you got a car for $88 a month, and you feel like you're running around a car for $88 a month, which of course you're not. So it can be very deceiving. I mean, let's face it. If you've got a car that's $20,000 and it has a residual of $12,000, you could have no payment at all. Just write them a check for $8,000, and you will have a 0 payment car. So this whole idea that you can have really, really low payments has to be looked at really carefully because, of course, there's always a down payment, there's always taxes, there's always licenses and other fees that have to be paid, and it isn't as inexpensive as it looks. You do not have an $88 car payment, at least not from the perspective of what you're paying over those 3 years. So let me give you a little bit of a heads up here on the car payment issue and what you're really paying, because on a lease, as you know, if you've ever leased a car, you don't know what it is that you're paying in interest on that car. And leasing is simply just a financing method. You are borrowing money. It's just the way that it's calculated is very different than if you were just doing straight financing. Okay? So when you sit down and you say, hey, what am I looking at here? And they're giving you your 10 or 12 or 15,000 miles. And then, of course, if your car's got the crap beaten out of it when you come back, you got to pay another certain amount of money to get the car fixed. And you've got to pay the overage on the mileage at whatever the per mile cost is. So you've got to take that into consideration. But what you want to ask them for is the factor. The factor, F-A-C-T-O-R. So, for instance, if the factor, and it will almost always begin with 0.00. In fact, it had better begin with 0.00, otherwise you want to walk away. Now, what would be best would be for the third number to be a 1, 0.001. Now, if it's 0.00125, and there will almost always be 4 or 5 numbers, 0.00125, you can then multiply that number by 2,400. That's right, 2,400. Multiply 0.00125 by 2,400, and you will see that you will end up with 3. When you do that multiplication. And that 3 is your equivalent interest rate. So when you multiply the factor by 2,400, you will now know that you are paying approximately 3%, or the equivalent of 3%, on borrowing that money within that lease structure, which is why you always want it to be at least 0.001. So if it was 0.001 0.00117, for instance, it would be less than 3%. If it was more than 0.00125, let's say 0.00149, then it would be more than 3%. So the lower the factor, the better off you are. In fact, if you've got 0.000 something something, then you might be paying 1 or 2%. So you've got to look at that. And of course, there are some deals, particularly with new cars, where they'll tell you there's 0% financing. Those are usually on buying, not leasing. So take a good look at that and decide, what's going to work best for you. Now, interest rates are particularly low right now, so when you're looking at buying, you can get 0% financing if what? If you've got really good credit. I'm going to cough. Excuse me. If you've got really good credit. So if you've got really good credit, you can get 0%. Yep, that just simply means that you can go out and buy your car for 20 grand and you'll pay your tax and so forth. So maybe you've got, let's use 18,000, and you can let's say 18,000. You do pay that over 4 years, so you've got about $4,500 a year, which is about $380 a month. There's no interest. That's very, very, very cool. And you don't have to worry about mileage, and you don't have to worry about turning back the car or any of that. Very cool, and that's one of the reasons why buying can be very attractive in this low interest rate environment. In fact, buying a new car can be more attractive in some cases than buying a used car, because of the low interest rate environment, right? If you've got to buy a used car and you're going to pay 5%, which is very possible with used car rates right now, you can in fact buy a new car for the same kind of money net. In other words, the payments and the total cost of the car over a period of 4 or 5 years could be the same with a new car than it is on a used car. So know your numbers, and I know you're going to get excited. I do. I go in, smell the leather, listen to the radio and all the other goodies on the car, and you're going to get pretty excited about getting a car. It just is. It's fun. It is fun to get another car, so particularly new ones. And so I want you to look at the numbers really carefully and make sure that, number one, you can afford it. Number two, that you're getting a really good deal. Particularly, again, let me repeat, particularly with a lease, because the mileage restrictions, because the car's got to go back in good order, because when you go back, they're going to say, hey, we can roll this into the next one, and you don't want to have a negative value in the lease. In other words, the costs associated with completing that lease rolled into the next car. It just means that you've got more debt and more issues when you come out of the second lease than you did coming out of the first lease. So you want to be real careful to make sure that you have the right mileage. For instance, if you're doing 15,000 a year, and you know you are, and you lease a car with 12,000 a year on it, you might have a little bit of a problem. But let me just tell you this, a little trick maybe. Maybe it's a trick to some of you. Maybe many of you know that this is the case. But you can sell a car that you've leased at any time that you like. You don't have to wait until the end of the lease to sell the car, to get out of the car. People think, oh, I can't get out of this lease. Now, if the car is upside down, that is true, right? I mean, if you call up the company and you say, hey, what's the payoff on my car? What is the payoff right now? And they say, well, the payoff is $14,322. Okay, great. And then you go to kbb.com, which is Kelley Blue Book. You can go to kbb.com and take a look at what your car's worth. You look it up and you say, oh my goodness, the car's worth $10,700. The payoff is, I can't even remember what I said, $12,000, whatever it was. And you're $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 upside down. Problem. You're probably going to have to wait till the end of the lease, which is why you want to make sure you've got a real good, solid lease. You've got a good residual at the end of the lease, and you're not, upside down for too long. You will be upside down most likely for the first 18 to 24 months on a 3-year lease, 24 to 36 months on a 4-year lease, and so forth. So take a look at that really carefully. But if you've got a car that's got a really good holding value, then you say, okay, I got this $14,000 payoff, but the car's worth $15,000. You might even be able to make money on the deal by selling the car instead of by turning it back in at the end. I had a client who had a $5,000 positive value on their car. Actually, he decided not to do it. Decided, I'm just going to walk in and I'm going to walk away and get another one. Okay, fine, I understand. But for those of you who want to take the trouble or who want to have a little bit of money in their pocket, there are many cases, or at least some cases, where the car value is actually worth more than the payoff. Just got to call the lease company and say, hey, what's the payoff on my car? They'll tell you the number. The number's usually good for 10 days. Throw it on Craigslist, Cars.com, Auto Trade, or whatever it is, and sell the car. And then you've got $5,000 in your pocket, and it's done. You don't have to wait till the end of the lease and now go down the road and start again. You may not even need that $5,000 for the next lease. So depends how much trouble you want to take, how much time you want to take, and whether or not that's enough money to worry about dealing with the issues of selling a car, which can be a bit of a pain in the neck. But nevertheless, for some of us, it works out real well. So if you have any other questions, hey, feel free to call me. I will tell you, look, I know that the old adage about cars and car dealerships and all that can be that they can be a little tough and, you know, they're always looking to screw you and all that. I don't know that that's so true anymore. There's always good and bad in any industry. You got to find a salesperson that you really like. You can also go to a car broker. If you know what you want, you just call up a car broker and say, hey, I would like a blue Acura blah, 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 and they'll find you one. They'll deliver it to the door, you make your payments, and you're good to go. So there's lots of options and lots of ways to make a good deal. So look, go over to neilsdeals.com, take a look at that, register there, subscribe there. You can subscribe on the wealthcreatorcompany.com as well. There are different tools and values to each website, so you can get some information on a regular basis from me. Stuff like we're doing today. But hey, be careful when you buy a car. Enjoy yourself. Have fun. Buy something that you can afford. And make sure when you're looking at a lease that you are looking at all the little pieces of it, because it's quite easy to misunderstand what it is that you have. This is Neil Palache, Certified Women's Money Coach with the Wealth Creator Company for Women. It's been a pleasure to be on the line with you today. If you have any questions, feel free to connect with me. Just punch my name in Google. You'll find me. You'll find my email. You'll find my address. You'll find my phone number. Although, feel free to call or text me at 818-606-7327, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions directly. Have a great week, everybody, and thanks for watching.